learned multiple ways to solve a quadratic. First of all, way back in chapter 9, we solved them by factoring. We have solved them by graphing them multiple ways, vertex form and standard form. We also learned complete the square last week. And the last way we're going to learn while we're in Algebra 1 is by using the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula is that's highlighted in yellow. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And we are going to sing that right now. 1, 2, 3. X equals negative b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Very good, class. That is wonderful. First time you've ever sung that song. Okay, so we're going to use that formula to find the solutions, which we know are also the x-intercepts to our quadratic equation. Now let's think back over the chapter. What does the graph of a quadratic equation look like? It's a U-shaped graph called a parabola, right? So these are still parabolas. However, we're not graphing them. We're solving them a different way by solving for x. And we're going to solve them by using this formula. Now, where do you think these letters in this formula come from? From the problem. From what? From A, B, and C. Because this is in a standard form quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the A term, this is the B term, and this is the C term. Just like it's been. And we do want to be equal to 0 when we're doing the quadratic formula. Okay? So if it's not equal to 0, that's the first thing we need to do is get it in standard form. So now that it is in standard form, we're going to plug in our A's and our B's and our C's into the quadratic formula. So just until we get it memorized, let's practice writing that. X equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Memorize, memorize, memorize that formula. That's why we sing it, to help us memorize it. So when you're taking your little test on Wednesday, you can sing that in your head to yourself. Okay. All right. So we're just going. All you have to do is fill this in and do arithmetic. That's it. Perform the order of operations. So you're going to say x equals negative. X equals negative before you even look at your A, B, and C. Now what is your B? 5. So I'm going to put it in parentheses. Plus or minus the square root of what's B? 5 squared minus 4. Now, y'all, a minus 4 always, always, always goes there. Times, what is our A term? 3. Times, what's our C term? Negative 8. And all of that divided by 2 times what's A? 3. So that's how we plug in our A, our B, and our C. B goes here and here, A goes here, C goes here, A goes here. Then all you have to do is simplify this down all the way until you get 2 numbers for your answer. You will have 2 because of this plus and minus thing, okay? So what I like to do is fix that negative 5 as negative 5, right? And I use parentheses because sometimes we have a double negative there. Plus and minus the square root of, what's 5 squared? I forgot my minus sign, sorry. It's supposed to be plus and minus. What's 5 squared, sorry? 25. Should this number ever be negative? No, because anything you square will be positive right here. Then you multiply all 3 of those together. If 2 of them are negative, it's going to be a what? A positive. So I'm going to put a plus sign here because I have 2 negatives. Even number of negatives is a positive. Odd number of negatives is a negative. 4 times 3 is 12. What's 12 times 8? 96. And all of that gets divided by what's 2 times 3? 6. Now we can simplify some more. Let's add those two terms in the radical. So what's 25 plus 96? 121. So x equals negative 5 plus and minus the square root of 121 divided by 6. And then the next thing we do is we take the square root of 121. And what is the square root of 121? 11. So this is x equals negative 5 plus and minus 11 divided by 6. So when you get rid of your square root sign, after you take the square root, I want you to come to the side somewhere, or wherever you have room, and I want you to break this into two separate problems. So it's negative 5 plus 11 divided by 6 and negative 5 minus 11 divided by 6. So you make two different fractions, negative 5 plus 11 divided by 6 and negative 5 minus 11 divided by 6. And then you're going to simplify those, numerator first. What's negative 5 plus 11? So this is 6 divided by 6. Go ahead and finish that. What is 6 divided by 6? 1. So there's one of our solutions. And what's negative 5 minus 11? And negative 16 over 6, we're just going to reduce that fraction. You can divide them both by 2. So that's what, negative 8 over 3? And there's my two answers. So it's really not difficult. It takes a while, takes up some space, but you're just doing arithmetic after you plug in your A's, B's, and C's. So all it is arithmetic. And then after you do your square root, you make two fractions. Okay? So this will take just a little bit of practice. We should get the hang of it, but like I said, it's just arithmetic. Memorizing the formula is the hardest part, honestly. And that's not hard. It's just x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of x squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. I about stuttered, but I got it all out. But I promise y'all learning to sing it, when you get to Algebra 2, you're going to remember it faster than everybody else. Because we sung it, and it's in your brain forever. You're welcome. All right. So this one's not in standard form, is it? No, it's not equal to 0. So that's our first job, to get it to standard form. So how do you think we do, how do we get that to standard form? Subtract the x. You always bring everything to the x squared when you're working with quadratics. Now, if I subtract x, does it matter where I put it? Yes. It's got to go in the middle, right? Because it's going least to greatest with our, or highest to lowest, greatest to least with our exponents. What I get for listening to you. So it's got to go in the middle. So 2x squared minus 1x minus 7 equals 0. So make sure that your variables go in decreasing order by their powers. So that's a negative 1x, isn't it? So when we plug in b's, we make sure we plug in a negative 1. So this is our a, this is our b, this is our c. Sing me the quadratic formula. X equals oh, that was wonderful. Like y'all was at your pet dog's funeral or something. All right, so I'm going to put down x equals negative. What's my b term? Negative 1 plus and minus the square root. What's my b term again? Squared minus 4 times what's a? What's c? No, it's not. Negative 7. Divided by 2 times what's a? 2. So be very careful that you include your negative signs if you have them, because if not, it's going to cause you to miss the problem. So x equals negative 1 is positive 1, plus and minus the square root. Then we're going to work inside the radical a little bit. What's negative 1 squared? Positive 1. Am I going to put a plus or a minus here? A negative and a negative? Yeah, it's a plus. So count your negatives to see if you need a plus or a minus. And 4 times 2 is 8 times 7 is 56. All divided by what's 2 times 2? 4. And what's 1 plus 56 under the radical? So 1 plus and minus the square root of 57 divided by 4. Go ahead and round that to about 2 decimal places. Square root of 57. Should. That's 7.55. So this is, I'm going to say approximately, because I'm rounding. 1 plus and minus 7.55 divided by 4. Right? Do y'all remember what to do after we take a square root? Make 2 separate problems. So x is approximately 1 plus 7.55 divided by 4. And x is approximately 1 minus 7.55 divided by 4. So 1 plus 7.55 is 8.55 divided by 4. I'm going to do that in my calculator. Where y'all getting? Approximately what? Me too. 2.14. There's one solution. And what's 1 minus that? 7.55? Negative 6.55. And then divide that by 4. Where y'all getting? Approximately what? Exactly what I got. So, y'all want to know a quick way you could check this? Didn't we learn how to graph this parabola the other day? Right? Put it in y equals and graph the parabola. So if our parabola is crossing the x-axis somewhere close to 2 and somewhere close to negative 1.5, then we'd know we did it right. Correct? It's not going to be exact because it's decimally rounded, but you can still graph your parabola and check your answer that way. Does that make sense? All right. So that's how you do it if you have a decimal. Look at C. After this one, you're going to do it. You try, and then we'll be finished with quadratic formula. An easy one. It's easy peasy today. Lucky y'all. All right, so this is a quadratic because it has an x squared. However, is it in standard form? No. How do I get it in standard form? Do I subtract the 4x? No, you got to move everything to the 4x squared. Why do you think we don't subtract 4x squared? It's the largest, but why do I tell y'all not to? Well, what happened if I did? It'd be a negative 4x squared. Now, what happens when we have a negative in front of our x squared? It turns our parabola upside down. Okay? Now, so it's supposed to be a positive 4x squared, so we want everything to stay positive. So that's why we don't move the 4x squared. We move everything to it. So we're going to subtract 7x, and that'll go in the middle. And we're going to subtract 2, and that goes on the end. So our quadratic says 4x squared minus 7x minus 2 equals 0. So are there any questions about how we got it equal to 0? All right, so we're going to use the quadratic formula, guys. What is the quadratic formula? A, B plus or minus radical. Raise your hand if you think you have it memorized already without looking at it. Good. The rest of you will get there. So I'm going to start filling in. This is my A, my B, and my C. So x equals negative parentheses. What's my B? Negative 7 plus and minus the square root. What's my B again? Squared minus 4 times what's A? What's C? All of it gets divided by 2 times what's A? 4. And we start simplifying. First of all, what's negative? Negative 7. So 7 plus and minus the square root of what's negative 7 squared? 49. What's negative 4 times negative 2? Positive or negative? Positive 32. And all of that gets divided by what's 2 times 4? 8. Now what do we need to do? Just keep simplifying. Add under the radical. What is 49 plus 32? So 7 plus and minus the square root of 81 divided by 8. I love it when there's a perfect square in there. That means no decimals. So 7 plus and minus, what's the square root of 81? 9 divided by 8. So this is going to be nice to do our arithmetic with. So then we break it into two problems. X equals 7 plus 9 divided by 8. And x equals 7 minus 9 divided by 8. What is 7 plus 9, y'all? What's 16 divided by 8? X equals 2. What is 7 minus 9? Negative 2 eighths reduces to what? Negative 1/4. So positive 2 and negative 1/4. And you could graph that on your calculator, and it should be crossing the x-axis at those two locations. So any questions about how we use the quadratic formula? It looks long and difficult, but it's just simple arithmetic the whole time. Okay? All right. Y'all try this one. Completely on your own. I'm going to give you a few minutes. You get 2 answers. When y'all get finished, y'all can go ahead and check with a neighbor, see if y'all got the same two solutions. You can pop it in your calculator, see if you get the same thing. All right, what did you have to do first to your equation, y'all? How'd you do that? Subtract 9 on both places. So you got 2x squared plus 7x minus 9 equals 0. What's your A, B, and C? Negative 9. Okay. So I already wrote my formula, so I'm going to plug it in. X equals negative, what's B? Plus and minus the square root of what's B? 7 squared minus 4 times what's A? What's C? All divided by 2 times what's A? So you got negative 7 plus and minus the square root of 49. That's going to be a plus. 8 times 9 is 72. Y'all get that? Over 4. Negative 7 plus or minus square. What's 49 plus 72? Oh, another nice perfect square. What is the square root of 121? And then what did you do after you got rid of the square root? Two fractions, negative 7 plus 11 over 4. And x equals negative 7 minus 11 over 4. What's negative 7 plus 11? Negative 7 plus 11. And what's 4 divided by 4? 1. What's negative 7 minus 11? Divided by 4, reduce that. What do we get? Raise your hand if you got 1 and negative 9 over 2. Now, negative 9 over 2 is like negative 4.5, right? I graph mine. Look at where my calculator's crossing the x-axis at positive 1 and negative 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Just like we said. So it's the same thing. You're just doing it a different way. So on your test on Wednesday, it might tell you to solve the quadratic by graphing, and then you need to do a graph. You can do it, depends on how it asks you to do it. It might make you do it by hand. It might make you do it in the calculator. Okay? You might have to find it by complete the square. That means I have to see your method of completing the square, where you have the b term square and add it to both sides. Or it might say use the quadratic formula, and that's when you do this. Okay? So you have to be able to know and do all the different methods. All right? All right, so that's the end of section 10.6. Then we're going to quickly talk about section 10.7, which is the discriminant. It's talking about the discriminant. Now, the discriminant is the little part that's underneath the radical in your quadratic formula. So b squared minus 4ac is your formula for your discriminant. It's not x equals b squared minus 4ac. It's just plain old b squared minus 4ac. No radical, just b squared minus 4ac. So this is going to be question number 2 on your quiz before you take your real test on Wednesday. Number your little quiz, I'm serious, is a quarter sheet of paper, a little bit bigger than this sticky note. And it'll say, number 1, write the quadratic formula. And you're going to write x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Number 2 is going to say, write the formula for a discriminant. And you're going to write b squared minus 4ac. Okay? So, but if you know the quadratic formula, you just memorize it's the part that's under the radical. So, b squared minus 4ac. So, it's really not anything extra to memorize. Now, the discriminant tells us a number. So when you're looking for a discriminant, you're just trying to find a number. Okay? If the number is positive, that means the parabola has 2 solutions. That means that the graph of the parabola touched the x-axis in 2 places. Okay, so I drew these little sketches. You don't have to, I didn't do it with graph paper because they're not precise. They're just a little rough sketch. So if you have a positive number for your discriminant, that means you're going to have 2 solutions. You're going to touch the x-axis twice. If you get 0 for your discriminant, that's the case where you only have one solution. So only the vertex touches the x-axis. So that would be when the vertex is the only point on the whole graph of the parabola that touches the x-axis. So if the discriminant is 0, you have one solution. And if you get a negative number for your discriminant, you will have no real solutions. That means your parabola never crosses the x-axis. So negative means no. Negative means no. Say it again. Negative means no. Negative, no. Positive 2, 0 equals 1. Negative, no. Positive is 2. 0 is 1. Negative is no. So I'm going to give y'all another minute to get that all copied down. I know I kind of talked through it really quickly. So those are not specific parabolas. They're just examples of what the graphs look like when you have a positive, 0, or negative discriminant. So what we're going to do is they're going to give us a quadratic equation. We're going to use the formula b squared minus 4ac to find a number. And then just based on what that number is, a positive, 0, or negative, we're going to tell how many solutions the parabola has. That's it. It's really simple, not difficult. Basically just do an order of operations with 4 different numbers. Y'all look at me when you got those kind of sketched out. They're so cute with y'all's highlighter. Y'all are just like me. I feel like I've trained you well. All right, so here's this quadratic equation right here, the graph of which is a parabola. And we are going to determine, without graphing it, how many solutions it's going to have. So again, that means we're going to determine how many times this parabola will cross the x-axis. So first we want to make sure we're in standard form. That means equal to 0, and we are. And we're in decreasing order from highest to lowest exponent, and we are. So we're going to use the formula b squared minus 4ac. That's it, b squared minus 4ac. And just like we've done all chapter, this is my A term, this is my B term, this is my C term. Bless you. And then you just substitute them in. So B is negative 12, so I'm going to have negative 12 squared minus 4 times A is 4 times C is 9. And then I just use the order of operations to work it out. I'm going to square, then multiply. I'm actually going to condense those steps and do it all on the same line. So negative 12 squared is what, y'all? 144. Negative 4 times 9. Negative what? So I'm going to say 144 minus 144 equals what? 0. And if we get 0 for the discriminant, that means I'm only going to have one solution. That means the vertex is the only point that touches the x-axis. So if you get 0, it's always one solution. Any questions about problem A? So you're just working it out to get a number. And then based on that number, you tell how many solutions there are. All right, so what are we going to have to do first with B, do you think? Yes, we got to get equal to 0 and put it in decreasing order. So what do I do with that 2x? Subtract it on both sides and stick it in the middle. So 3x squared minus 2x minus 7 equals 0. Any questions about that part? All right, then we're going to use b squared minus 4ac and plug them in and get our number. So what is b in this problem? -2. So -2 squared minus 4 times what's our a? 3. What's our c? And all of that gets, well, I'm not dividing. Sorry. That's discriminant. All right, so -2 squared is what? 4. -4 times 3 times -7? Positive 84. Yes. Because I had two negatives, that's why it's positive, right? Even number of negatives changes to a plus. What's 4 plus 84? So my discriminant that I'm getting is an 88. And that's a positive number. So how many solutions will we have if we get a positive discriminant? 2. So you would just say 88 and then 2 solutions. So find the discriminant and then tell how many solutions you would have. And then you can always check it by putting that graph in the calculator. However, sometimes you can't get the whole picture by graphing it in the calculator. Just depends. Look at C, please. What can y'all tell me about the parabola on problem C here? It's an upside down parabola. It sure is. So what do I do to it first before I can determine how many solutions it will have? So I subtract the 1, and where do I stick it? At the end, it's my C term. So -x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. And then I'm going to use what formula to find the discriminant? b squared minus 4ac. And I'm going to plug them in. What's my b? 2 squared minus 4 times what's a? -1. What's c? -1. All right, what's 2 squared? What do I have when I have 3 negatives? A negative. 4 times 1 times 1 is what? 4. And so 4 minus 4 equals 0. And if I have 0 for the discriminant, how many solutions is that? 1 solution. Some people get 0 and say it's no solution. That's not true. Negative is no. 0 is 1, negative no. I know that's confusing. That's why I make you say negative no. All right, this one's got m's in it. Same thing as if it had x's in it. It's still quadratic, still a parabola. It doesn't matter the variable. What are we going to do to this one first? Add the 2 to both sides. So I have 3m squared plus 4m plus 2. Now, how do we find the discriminant? What's the formula for that? b squared minus 4ac. Now, what's our b? So 4 squared minus 4 times what's a? What's c? 2. And then what's 4 squared? What's -4 times 3 times 2? -24. And what is 16 minus 24? -8 is my discriminant. So how many solutions will I have? No solution. Negative no. It should say no real solution because it could have imaginary solutions. But y'all are not in Algebra 2 yet. Just wait. Imaginary numbers are so fun. I want y'all to try all 3 of those right now on your own. Okay, y'all, 3 doesn't have a C term, or does it? What is the C term? This is the same thing as saying plus 0. So use 0 for your C term on number 3. All right, I'm going to hush and leave you all alone. Those are all equal to 0 now, so just do your b squared minus 4ac. And tell me how many solutions, please. I think that's the end. It is the end. Go ahead and check in with somebody. All right, so what is my formula for a discriminant, y'all? B squared minus 4AC. So B squared minus 4AC. What's my B in number 1? 10 squared minus 4 times what's A? What's C? What's 10 squared? What's negative 4 times 1 times 25? Minus 100. What's 100 minus 100? How many solutions do we have? 1 solution. Raise your hand if you got 0 for the discriminant and 1 solution for number 1. Very good. Number 2, B squared minus 4AC. What is my B? So negative 5 squared minus 4 times what's A? What's C? What's negative 5 squared? What's negative 2 times 4 times 6? Negative 48. What's 25 minus 48? Negative 23. So there's my discriminant. How many solutions am I going to have? No solution. Negative means no. And the last one, B squared minus 4AC. What's my B? Negative 9 squared minus 4 times what's A? What's C? So negative 9 squared is minus 0 equals what? And that's a positive number, so how many solutions? 2 solutions. Raise your hand if you got 81 and 2 solutions for number 3. Any questions on how to find a discriminant? So that concludes our lesson for today, and it also concludes the material for Chapter 10.